Welcome to the Opportunity Zone. I am Nate Armstrong. I get to be your solo host. My co-host is in Hawaii right now. Unbelievable, having much more fun than I'm sure. But we have a lot in store. I see Ralph. You're not zooming right now. You're online with us. Cool. And as you are streaming, as we're streaming into Facebook right now and Instagram and a few other platforms, if you are with us, just type hi in the chat. I want to make sure that the audio is coming through for you because as we approach these elections right now, there's a lot that's at stake when it comes to our investments in real estate. And I get the privilege today of going through and dissecting what's actually happening. We've got the Federal Reserve, who's scheduled to make a pretty big announcement in September. And what is that doing to rates? How is it affecting you as a real estate investor? We have a landmark property right now in Manhattan that just about has gone into foreclosure, $365 million deal. And are we out of the woods yet? I want to go through and dissect that. I want to go through some of the data on that. We have California still making, I guess I'm going to use the term that I hear the politicians using now, weird. California is making weird decisions. What are they thinking? And how is that affecting their real estate? And then the big one that institutional investors are all talking about right now, and that's if the Democrats win, if Kamala Harris and Walz win, will they stop institutional investors? Will they stop institutional investors from owning single family houses? What caps will they put in place? Will they limit the amount of rent that can be collected? Will they prevent you from owning a certain number of houses or multifamily properties? So all of that and more on today's Opportunity Zone. So let's go ahead and dive into this. First and foremost, I want to jump straight into the news because this is actually a little bit of a tumultuous time, to say the least. I've seen so much division and rhetoric with all the political agendas that are out there that I don't even know how to make heads and tails out of some of this stuff unless I dive into the actual policies that they're promoting. And so what I want to do now is I actually want to go through some of the news articles on this and show what actually is shaken. So first and foremost, big landmark lawsuit just got settled by National Association of Realtors. If you haven't seen this yet, oh, that's the wrong one. If you haven't seen this yet, know that this will forever change the way that real estate agents get paid on the buy side. So it's this one right here, okay? What happened is that National Association of Realtors, along with 3, maybe 4 other big brokerage houses like RE/MAX, Keller Williams, et cetera, they got named in a big lawsuit. And they were saying, hey, you're not being truthful with buyers as they're getting representation from agents. And therefore, going forward, they had to do a massive settlement, hundreds of millions of dollars, each of them had to pay. And therefore, you have to change the way that you do business in the future. And the change is that now, when a buyer signs up with a real estate agent to go out and go shopping for a property, they have to negotiate with that agent on how much they'll pay the agent. You see, in the past, sellers used to pay that commission. So if you're going to sell your property, you'd sign up with a broker, and the broker would charge you something like a 5 or a 6% fee, and that would include paying for both agents, your agent and the agent that represents the buyer. That's all going away now. Now it's just when you sell a property, you are signing up to sell your property, and you're only paying the selling side agent, your agent. You're not paying the agent that brings a buyer. So buyers' agents are kind of left out to fend for themselves, to negotiate their own commissions. So we're going to see a major shakeup in the way that agents and agency is done going forward in the future. So if you're out there and you're still buying single family houses as an investor, just know this, like, you should have a conversation with your agent. You should negotiate that rate because it's no longer paid for by the seller. You have to account for that in your underwriting. It can't be listed on the MLS. It can't be talked about. So even between agents can't be talked about. It is between the buyer and the buyer's agent only. This is the biggest shakeup for realtors that I've seen in at least a decade. I have not seen anything bigger than this. This will cause some major changes in the real estate world as we know it. This just went into effect. It's made national news now at this point, and it probably will for the next few weeks. Okay, next one. I want to talk a little bit about something happening right now over in New York. We've got a Manhattan building. A lot of people are wondering, like, hey, are we out of the woods yet when it comes to some of these mortgages that have gone into default? Have we hit bottom, so to speak, with multifamily and with commercial real estate as a whole? How about single family? Well, there's something that you have to pay attention to right now. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, we all know what's happened to office space. It's taking a beating. It's coming down a lot. Okay? The Federal Reserve stepped in at some point and they started to increase interest rates to kill inflation. That did not help, certainly. That gave a bigger beating to it. And here's the result, net result of this, okay? You have this beautiful landmark property. Literally, I'll put it up on a better view. This is right downtown Manhattan. This is 1500 Broadway Street. There's a loan on this property today for $365 million. For the last 5 or 6 months, the owner of this property has been shopping it to lenders to try to pull off a refinance. Unfortunately, they have not been able to pull off a refinance. And now the bank has hired the servicing company to step in, and who knows what's going to happen next, but it probably goes to foreclosure from here. Now, why? What's causing that? Number one, when the borrower, the owner of the property, took out the loan for this property, they had good occupancy. They had a lot of tenants that were paying rent, which valued the property much higher. You see, with commercial real estate, the value of a property is driven by the net operating income. I've got a 10-year-old boy, his name is Bianco, and I always tell Bianco that net operating income looks like this. If you increase the rents or you decrease the expenses, at the same time, you increase the value of the property. It's not the same as a single family house. Those of you that are doing single family house investing, you know, like the value is determined by the appraiser and what all the neighbors sold their properties for. Multifamily, in commercial, office space, etc., it's all driven by the rents. What is the net operating income? And unfortunately, the net operating income is driven down most recently on these office spaces because tenants have been moving out in droves. And therefore, you got this person that's facing foreclosure. Even bigger deals, to put this in context, this property right here, it's 135 West 50th Street, New York City. In 2006, it was sold for $332 million. This article is about a week old now. So a week and a half ago, it just sold for $8.5 million. To really remember that, like, type this in the chat for me, 332 million to 8.5 million. We're literally living in one of the best commercial real estate opportunities that we've seen in my entire life. I'm not even joking about that. Like, you don't see buildings that less than 2 decades ago were built and sold for 332. You don't see them sold for 8.5 million, that big of a haircut, that big of a discount very often. We are in some crazy times. And I know that you might not feel it yet because right now we're in the middle of this whole, like, all these prices are high, groceries went up, gas went up, single family home prices went up, everything inflated. It inflated like crazy. So you probably don't feel it, especially if you've got equity in your house right now. But in the commercial world, they don't. The commercial world did not get propped up. The commercial world did not have any bailouts or any protections or anything like that. The commercial world, when the Federal Reserve started raising the interest rates 2 years ago, the commercial world went through its pain. It like ripped off the Band-Aid right away. And offices, they're feeling the full blunt of it right now. Multifamily took a step backwards. It didn't take a fall like like office space did, but multifamily took a step backwards. You probably heard me talk about before Blackstone, one of the biggest funds in the world, if not the biggest, they're the world's largest landlord. They're aggressively buying multifamily property right now. They deployed $210 billion in the last quarter. Now, why is that? Well, according to John Gray, who's their vice president of real estate, he said that multifamily hit bottom. It's currently in its bottom. And if you want to know what that bottom actually looks like, I'm going to refer to this graph. This is a beautiful display, and it actually shows where multifamily resides today. At the end of last year, it came down, and we're currently in that down slump. It's starting to come back up already. I can feel it in the market because we place so many offers every single week. In the last 30 years, multifamily has only dipped twice. It dipped in 2009. It was down for less than a year and then came back. And it dipped right now. We're in the middle of that dip, probably on towards the tail end of it. And you can pick up properties right now, at least according to Green Street's data, 30% discount on multifamily, 30% discount. That is massive. You do not see that very often. And right now, multifamily has that dip. So if you're a person that likes to buy when things are low, then you should really be watching commercial real estate. Now, I know sometimes on the show, we talk about, well, what about single family houses? When is that going to cycle? Are we going to see a mass wave of foreclosures and things like that? The reality is that we don't know. We have had a housing shortage problem in this country for a while. So even though there's been a little bit of relief with the rates have started to come down a little bit. Even though the Fed hasn't cut the rates, the market has driven the rates down a little bit. Even though rates are starting to drop, right now prices are still high on single family houses. And I anticipate they will be at least until the end of this year. You're starting to see some markets like Florida and Texas that are seeing price drops and some prices coming down. Builders are cutting prices like crazy right now. But I don't think we're going to see a mass movement down until at least the end of this year. And the reason is this current presidential administration has a lot of band-aids on the housing market. Did you know right now that VA loans cannot be foreclosed on? Did you know that FHA loans, for the most part, they have a lot of strict rules against foreclosing on them? The servicing companies are getting reimbursed for losses. There's all kinds of things going on behind the scenes, stuff that's not even talked about in the mainstream news, that's propping up the single family house market. And I suspect it's probably because we have an election right now and they don't want a whole bunch of problems before the election. We need to get through the election, and then I think some of the band-aid starts to come off. So if you're someone that's been waiting for the single family gold rush, so to speak, or the dip in prices, look to 2025, not 2024. If you are an opportunity buyer, if you're someone that says, I want my deal now, you should be looking at commercial real estate. Office would be your slam dunk. We don't do office space here, so I can't speak much about that. But multifamily is something that we do. And right now, it's the best deals of our lifetime that we're seeing in multifamily sector. So that's what's happening over in New York City now. I want to talk a little about, I'm going to put my weight here in the presidential race, at least with some policies. Okay. You have right now Harris, who's from San Francisco. A lot of the policies that are implemented there have been influenced by Harris over the years, at least when she was a senator. And one that's come back up again now is this one. This is a ban on revenue management software. So right now on the Harris Waltz ticket, they have Joe Biden's original rent cap, which is 5%. We talked about that 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's actually not that bad of a thing. I'll get to that in a minute. But in addition to that, now they're starting to go out and attack individual private companies that are in the game of setting rent rates. So if you don't do this professionally, one thing I'll teach you right now is that when you price your rentals, when you've got a lot of rental units, typically you'll rely on software to help you price it, software that comps things out. They go in and they look at other buildings, they see what they're renting for. It gives you real-time data. That way there, you're not guessing. You're not just like secret shopping all the time. Instead, you're able to see what everybody else is renting for and then set your prices based on that. Well, they just passed in San Francisco a ban on using those softwares. They imposed a really big fine on the companies that are doing it. They imposed a fine on RealPage, which is one software provider, and then Yardi, which is another really big property management software provider. And so now that those two have been hit with these big violations, and they'll be hit even further if they continue to provide software services, now a lot of landlords in the San Francisco area, they're going to be left to fend for themselves. They'll have to kind of go back to the old school way of pricing out their rentals. And this whole concept of attacking private enterprises, number one, it's a little bit scary. But number two, I don't think it actually solves the problem. You see, what they're trying to do is make rentals more affordable. That's the whole goal. What do you think? Let me know in the comments on this. What do you think is the logical way to make rents more affordable? When you have a supply and demand problem, how do you fix it? How do you actually fix that? You see, what I'm seeing with the candidates, at least on the Harris Waltz ticket right now, they're attacking some of the problems by saying, hey, we're going to go after and price fix. We're going to go after and make sure that people can't use softwares like this. That's been the solution that's been thrown out. And you and I both know that the actual solution is provide more housing. So I think that the candidate that actually is going to really impress people is the candidate that can come forward and say, you know what, I've got a plan for more affordable housing. I've got a plan that's actually going to bring more housing units to the country and help lower the rents. That's the only real solution long-term for this. San Francisco's rents are out of control. They're super high. And the only way to fix that is either people move out of there or you bring more supply to the market. So they need more supply, just like a lot of areas of the country. Okay, next one. This one is going to definitely affect us as real estate investors. And the bottom line with this one is that this is the Harris-Walz ticket. They're adopting a bill that a senator put forward, or someone in the House of Representatives put forward a couple months ago. They're adopting this as part of their campaign platform. And they're saying, hey, anyone that owns a lot of single family houses right now is considered a predator. And they have this bill called the Stop Predatory Investing Act. And Harris has committed that in her first 100 days in office, she would pass this. She would help Congress pass this. What it says is this. Basically, if you own a whole bunch of single family houses, you will not be able to buy any more of them. They're going to take away all your tax benefits, number one, and they're going to make it really, really difficult for you, number two. Now, the final, what this bill will actually include, obviously that has to be negotiated by the House, by the Senate, and then eventually signed into legislation by the president. It's highly unlikely that it would ever actually pass unless the presidential administration, the House of Representatives, and the Senate all lined up with the same political affiliation. That's the only way that I really see this going through. But let's just say that that happens. Let's say that Harris and Democrats swept the entire House, they swept Senate, everything. What this means is that if you plan to go out and buy a whole bunch of single family houses, you're probably going to get shut out of that market. Where do investors place their money? I want to go back to that original question, where I want to know from our investors, where do you want to place money? I know from working with thousands of investors over the years now, I keep hearing that they want their capital safe. They want their capital preserved. They don't want risk of loss. And when they hear things like rent control, they hear things like caps, those kinds of words are scary for someone putting money in. And so back to what I said a couple of minutes ago, if they're really trying to solve the housing problem, the housing shortage, the answer is not really to go in and put caps and mandates and block people from putting investment capital in. What that's going to do is it's going to cause people like you and me to not want to put money in. I know certainly for me, I'm not going to go buy a bunch of single family houses. There's no way, because if this bill's on the table and there's a chance that all three branches of government get elected and they follow this platform, I don't want to be in the single family home investing world. I think it'd be way too risky, way too scary. It's not at all exciting to me. Now, multifamily, I'm not afraid of, not at all. Even if Joe Biden's original proposal of a 5% rent cap came to be true, which would be really hard to do, but if they did pass that, think about this. Okay, really, really process this with me. If your rents go up 5% per year, when we do all of our underwriting is typically between 3%. Some years we might account for 5%, but it's usually around 3%. We're never projecting we're going to get a 5% rent rate. That's unrealistic, except for the first year when you come in and make a bunch of improvements. But year 2, year 3, year 4, you're usually leveling off around 3%. So if you had 5% to grow, you end up, at least if you're running conservative projections, you end up hitting all of your numbers for your investors. It makes you very, very wealthy to grow your rents by 5% every single year. That would be fantastic to grow your rents by 5% every single year. I don't know if they put that proposal out there just as a soundbite, like, oh, we're going to cap the landlords from raising rents or what. I don't think anyone actually did the math. The math is very favorable in your favor and my favor as a real estate investor in multifamily. So I'm okay if that one gets passed. Bring it on, no problem. Yeah, we're good to go there. Okay, last thing on the news frontier, and then I got a couple of things that I want to get into. I know that we've had a lot of requests to look at your guys' deals that are out there. So if you've got one, forward it to me and we'll look at it. And then also people wanted to talk this week from our Facebook group. People are asking a lot about how do we find the right property management team. So I'm going to get into that in just a couple of minutes here. So the last one that I want to cover is this. We covered a lot about if the Harris-Walz campaign wins, Now I want to cover if the Trump Vance ticket ends up winning. So a lot of this is crystal ball talk, as you guys know, especially because we don't know if the House of Representatives and the Senate will go the same political affiliation or not. But if, let's just say, we get a Trump win, I expect more of what we saw back in 2016. The campaign promises, with the exception of adding two things, no tax on tips and no tax on Social Security, the campaign promises are pretty much the same as in 2016. And for the most part, the campaign promises that were put out there, that's what that administration worked on during that presidency. So it was favorable to you and I as real estate investors from a tax perspective. From a tax perspective, we've never had, at least since Ronald Reagan, we've never had a presidential administration give us so many tax benefits as a real estate investor. So if we see a Trump win, then you should be going gung-ho, taking the tax advantages provided by real estate investing, 100%. There's also some advantages to investing in businesses and things like that, but real estate specifically has so many tax advantages. Right now, we have probably one of the biggest ones, and it's kind of, I want to do this. We'll zoom into this quick. It's called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And the way that this works, from now until 2026, we have this thing that the Trump administration passed, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that literally lets us not only speed up something that's called depreciation, which I'll define in a second, not only speed this up, but in addition to this, it gives bonus. Okay. Now, what is this? This is like God's gift to those of you that want to pay less tax. Who here wants to pay less tax? If you want to pay less tax, type tax in the comments for me. If you want to pay less tax, I want you to type tax in the comments because I want you to pay attention to this part. Most people totally miss this. Nobody teaches this in the school system. Nobody teaches this even in college. Like, it's just not talked about, okay? But in the tax code, we have something way better than a 1031 exchange, way better. And it's called passive losses. Passive losses. How does it work? Works like this. You buy a piece of real estate. It's got a building on it. That building, the IRS understands and knows that over time it's going to wear out. And they let you do something called depreciate the value of it, which gives you in your pocket on your tax returns a way where you can actually take the value of that depreciation per year and add it back to your taxes, literally allowing you, if you structure this the right way, I'm going to get to that in a second. You structure this the right way, literally allowing you to wipe out some of your other income, at least the rental income on this property. For some of you, if you structure it the way that I do, it might even wipe out all of your income from other sources, okay? You can't do this very many places, but with a piece of real estate, I'm going to show you one in just a second. I'll show you how you can apply it to you. But if you do this the right way, you can get these passive losses to offset ordinary income if it's structured the right way. This is all part of this beautiful thing called depreciation. And what the last presidential administration did, they passed Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. They said, we're not only going to allow you to have this, but we're going to let you speed the whole thing up. Yeah, you can take more of it faster. Instead of having to wait 27 years, you can take it all in 4 years or 3 years, whichever you want. You can speed the whole thing up. And so therefore, if you're making a lot of money, like a lot of the clients we get the blessing to work with right now, and instead of having to pay massive amounts in tax, instead, what you do is you invest in a piece of real estate and get more of these passive losses to offset it. To, in essence, I call it, with my 10-year-old son, Bianco, I call it a tax credit. I know my CPA would say, Nate, you can't call it a tax credit because it's not legally a tax credit. But I think of it like that. Like, it's kind of like a credit. Obviously, I'm not your CPA. I'm not giving you financial advice, all that kind of stuff. I'm telling you what I do. If you want to learn more about that, then what you do is just jump on the phone with one of our team members, and we'll teach you what we're doing and how we apply these passive losses to our ordinary income, how we help offset it and reduce or eliminate, in some cases, that. By the way, I will show you now the real estate deal that you could do that on, okay? And it works like this. Now, at any time, if you want to explore with our team how to invest in this deal or potentially wipe out some of your ordinary income or wipe out some of your income in general, then reach out to our team. We'll walk you through what I'm doing personally on mine. We'll walk you through, we can introduce you to our CPA, whatever would help you, okay? We have this multifamily property called Pine Tree Path. Beautiful property. It's literally right in the middle of one of the best markets in the country right now. Actually, the state of Kentucky hit #1 in multifamily investing according to apartments.com. Literally #1. It's the first one on the list. This city is about an hour from Louisville. It's called Lexington. I'll show you it. This property specifically is surrounded by multi-million-dollar horse farms. It's the area of the country, if you've ever seen movies like Secretariat, where they breed these beautiful racehorses, this is that part of the country. There's like sultans from the Middle East that fly jumbo jets into this city, okay? And we got this thing, and this was a 3-year negotiation. We put in an offer 3 years ago. Seller said no. We came back again. Finally, the seller gave in. And the beautiful part is that the seller believes in the property so much, he decided to keep most of his money in the deal. He's seller financing it to us at 4% interest. You cannot get 4% interest anywhere you go right now. It's just not possible. And we got this at 4%. Now, where's the upside for us? What makes this thing so good? Okay, I'm going to define that. I'm going to zoom it in right here, and I want you to pay attention to this. This is the most important number in multifamily real estate. What is it rented for today, and what can it be rented for? Earlier, I talked about net operating income. You probably remember that part. And when I talked about it, I said that it's driven 100% by increasing the rents or decreasing expenses. This particular property right now today is rented at $1.19, $1.19 per square foot. Okay. What the neighboring properties are rented for is $1.57 per square foot. What that means for us as new owners of the property, as soon as we close on it, is that we have opportunity. We can go in and start increasing the rents from this $1.19 up to the $1.57 by doing some light improvements to it. What I mean by that is there's no cosmetic surgery. Like if you're getting into multifamily real estate, you want your money to work for you quick. You don't want to have to go through long building and developing and ripping roofs off and all that kind of stuff. What you want is a property like this. Okay, this property right here, this is considered C class, but it's like on the high end of C class. It's almost B class, but it lacks some of the amenities that you would call a B class property. But area wise, it's definitely high end. Like I could even easily call this A class area, but the asset itself is C class. What we do is we come in and we update these units. They're not bad, but as a tenant, their lease expires and they move out, we come in, we refurbish, we put in updated countertops, put in new appliances, make it look nice and modern, and then we bump the rents up, okay? That's all we have to do. This property right now is 100% occupied, meaning there's no vacancies today. So what we'll do as leases expire is we'll go in, we'll update the units, and then we'll bring them up to market rate rent. When we bring them to market rate rent, this $1.57 per square foot, when we get here, we increase the value of the property by so much that we're able to turn around and sell it. That's when you partner with us on this deal, that's when you as the investor get to get cashed out with all of your money back as first priority. And then number two, a nice big profit check. The best part though is that in the middle, this property is already rented. It's already spitting out cash flow. It's giving us cash flow all the way through. Every single quarter, we expect to be able to make a distribution payment to our investors. Not a lot of multifamily properties are able to do that right now. A lot of the folks that I see in the syndication space, what they're doing is they're basically promising future profits on things instead of being able to deliver all the way through quarter after quarter. If you're interested in a property like this, we're planning to get into this thing. It's going to be about a 5-year project from start to finish, from the day that we buy it till the day that we turn around and sell it. We are taking $100,000 minimums on it. We're almost completely full on it, and we lost one of our really big investors, we had a $1 million slot that was coming in, but he had a medical emergency, so he can't come in on it. So there's some room left on this. If you're interested in it, what you do is book a call with our team. Sue, if you could drop that link in this chat here, and then for those of you that are following us online, if you're interested in exploring this deal, or if you want us to teach you about how we're doing these tax advantage plays, then type the word call, C-A-L-L, call, down in the chat. Type the word call, and then our team will reach out to you. We'll book a call with you, and then we'll talk about all the details of this particular property. Okay, let's get into this. I got one more segment that I want to cover, and this is directly from you guys in the Facebook group. And it's how to find property managers. How are we doing it? Okay. There's different classes of real estate. I just got done mentioning a few of them. I mentioned A class, B class, C class. Let me give the definition, and then let me talk about property managers for each one. So A class would be your high end, your newest stuff, probably in the best areas in town. You can probably think of what I'm talking about. It's mostly executive style living, the highest rents you can think of in the area. That's A class. All the amenities, swimming pool, sauna, parking garage, you name it, it's got it. Okay, that's an A class property. A B class property would be one level down. You might have a higher end blue collar, maybe lower end white collar type jobs. You have some amenities. Maybe the property is a decade old, maybe 2 decades old. That's kind of B class. C class would be more of your working class individuals. The majority of housing in America is built on C class asset. Okay, properties built anywhere from the 1950s all the way to the early 2000s might be considered C class housing. And the reason I want to go through and segregate them is because the property managers in each of those segments are very different. You see, property managers, they're competing and they're doing all of this business typically for a fee of somewhere around 4%. Some of them might be 8%, some might be 10%. It depends on how many units you're bringing them. It depends on your relationship. It depends on what you're providing and what they're providing, but let's just call it 4%. Now, if you were a property manager and making 4%, would you rather manage a unit that rents for $5,000 per month or a unit that rents for $1,000 per month? Let me know in the comments. Would you, if you were the property manager making 4% on any income collected, would you rather do it on the unit that rents for $5,000 per month or the one that rents for $1,000 per month? I see you there, Ralph. Yeah, definitely. 5,000, right? Simple math. Like if you're making a percentage, you might as well make the percentage on whatever is going to bring you the most money. I agree with you. Well, the thing is, for property managers, all of them, the best ones, they want to be in Class A. They're willing to compete. You have the most talented property managers, the most talented people in the world that are in the property management business. The best ones are going to go to Class A. They're going to get the majority of the deals in Class A space. So in Class A, it's so competitive and there's so many really good managers, you don't even really have to self-manage. You can get by with hiring an existing company to do it. Okay. Now, why do I say that? Because the way that we structured property management here in our company, and we've done this a lot of different ways. We built the highest rated property management company in the state of Wisconsin. We built it really big and we sold it to a huge national brand. They bought us out. We had a big exit on it. Everybody celebrated, all that kind of good stuff. But I'll tell you, after we handed over the reins to the new management company, we started having regrets. We're like, oh man, they don't do it the same way that we did it. They don't put the same love into it that we did. And you may have experienced that. How many here have heard a horror story about some property manager not doing the right thing? Have you ever heard about that? You probably heard a story from someone, or maybe you've had your own experience with a bad property management company. Usually that happens, at least in my experience in life, in the C class asset, sometimes in the B, but in the C's for sure. C class, because it's a lower dollar amount, you have more property managers there. Okay, you have a ton of them. They all would like to hit the A stuff because it pays them more. But at the end of the day, the A's are only going to be hired by the best of the best. That's who's going to get all of those listings. The C stuff is kind of where you get your C player property managers. And I hope that no one in the property management field takes offense to this. I'm not trying to say it in a derogatory way, but I was a C-class property manager for a long time. I sat in my property management company's office. I managed units. Like I stayed there till 11 o'clock at night, many nights. I remember one night that I came home and my wife, Jennifer, actually asked me, she said, can I count on you to be the father of our children? She literally asked me that. And what was I doing all night? I was handling broken toilet phone calls and things like that. The C-class asset management world, it's tough. Like there's maintenance on those properties. They need a lot of love. And what we found is that most third parties, they won't put the same love into it that maybe you or I would. And so we took C-class in-house. All of our C-class assets here, we manage in-house. We have our own employee there, like on the ground. We've got a team member in our central office that's they all flow up to and report to. And then that team member flies out and visits on the ground. But everything C-class we manage in-house. So that's the key word for it, okay? C-class in-house. I'm not suggesting everybody here goes out and becomes a property manager overnight, but I am suggesting, like, as you're looking at investments to put your money into, if it's a C-class asset, I'd probably be asking the sponsorship team, the team that's managing the deal, I would say, hey, how do you manage this thing? How do you pick a property management company? C-class, hands down, we manage in-house. We replaced 2 out of 3. We've had third-party managers after we sold our company, our property management company. We had third-party managers. We replaced 2 out of the 3 in the state of Kentucky. We've taken all of those units in-house. Our third one, we haven't, just it's in a different city, strategic reasons, but it's better for us to manage in-house, okay? B-class and A-class properties, I'm going to refer you to interview the best. Whoever has, and I'm going to write these down in order of importance, okay? Number 1, highest ratings. Ratings. Whoever has the highest ratings on Google, literally, those are mostly tenants that give them the reviews. Whoever has the highest ratings, I would consider. Now, why do I say the Google reviews? Well, because tenants go in there and tenants will rip the manager apart if they don't like the management company. I want that. I want that transparency. Facebook also has decent reviews, but I find Google is a little bit better. I want that transparency. I want to see how they're treating the tenants, because that tenant is your customer. That tenant is the one that's paying the rent month after month. I want to see how the property management company treats your prospective customers. So I'm going to look at the Google reviews. I want to see 4.5 or higher. I one time interviewed this property management company in Kansas City. His name was Jim. I won't go any further than that because I like him, I respect him, but I didn't hire him. He told me the reason that they had a 3.9 star rating is because they had to file evictions. And he had a plausible story. It made sense. Like, oh, those tenants trash us and all that kind of stuff because we're the rent collector. Kind of makes sense. But number 1, why do you have so many evictions that your reviews get trashed? That's kind of a problem, okay? And then number 2, you can still do things and have respect. Like if a tenant knows that, like, you've tried everything you can as a management company, you put the love in, you fixed the place, you worked with the tenant as far as you could, they aren't going to scorch you on the way out. The ones that scorch on the way out is they're mad about something, some unresolved issue, some maintenance thing, or some unfair treatment. And so Google reviews are very, very important for me, okay? Number 2, I need to know how they bill for maintenance. This is so important. So important. When I was a rookie real estate investor, my wife and I had this property in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I remember reading my financial statement one month from the management company, third-party one, and I was reading it, and I got billed this massive amount for cleaning out the gutters and the downspouts on the property. And I looked at it and I'm like, holy cow, that's expensive. Like, wow. And I called the property manager and I'm like, hey, how come I got this big bill? And then she said, well, because one of our maintenance guys was there doing a furnace filter change. And while he was there, he noticed that the leaves were overflowing in the gutters. So he thought it would be important to get them cleaned out so there wouldn't be a problem. I said, okay, seems reasonable, but why did it cost this much? And she's like, well, because we bill at $85 per hour and that's our standard rate. And I'm like, 85 times, 12 hours. This is a lot of money. And what I've figured out in the process of all this, number 1, you don't want an HVAC person that changes furnace filters cleaning your gutters. Like, you can get a painter with a ladder that you pay 20 bucks per hour to clean your gutters. Like you don't need a furnace guy cleaning out your gutters. Like there's a huge discrepancy in price. It should have been half or less on that price. But the more important thing that I figured out is that her entire business, that third-party property manager, they were built off of maintenance billable hours. And so it's important that you ask the property management company, how do you bill for maintenance? Like, is it on, like, is it a dollar amount? Do you have a fixed amount? Do you include any with the management fee? Like, how does that work? You have to really understand that, because if this is their central motivation, and this property management company had 9 maintenance people on staff, they had to keep 9 people busy all the time, and they only had like 300 or 400 units. 9 people had to stay busy. They will look for things to do. Now, I'm not saying that cleaning my gutters was a bad thing. Like, I'm glad they cleaned my gutters out, 100%. But having the most expensive person clean my gutters was a bad thing. And so you have to understand how they do maintenance, okay? And then the last one probably might seem a little bit more obvious. Last one here. Move back. The last one is, how do they actually bill you? Some property managers, they want to charge a flat fixed fee. Some property managers want to have an on-site manager and then charge a fee on top for administrative reasons. I'm not going to say there's one that's right or wrong, because we've done it both ways. We've hired both ways. But what you need to figure out is the total cost. Okay? Don't just read 4% and get excited and be like, oh, yay, because you might find out later that they charge lease-up fees, 100% of first month's rent. That adds up really fast. You might find out later that they also charge a setup fee for every single tenant that they bring on, or every single unit that they bring on. $250 setup fee times 100 unit building. Holy cow, the money adds up fast. So you need to calculate the total amount that you're paying them. This is how we vet and review property management companies. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Nobody wants to get the short end of the stick on property management, because that is the most important thing that you do to take care of your asset long-term. I'm going to do this quick one more time. I want to make sure that I announce this deal, and then I'm going to flip over to one more component here. So Pine Tree Path, if you are looking for a deal right now, we have a little bit of room left on this one, because we had one investor that ended up having a medical emergency, and it opened up a spot on this. If you're looking for a safe place to park capital right now in a multifamily deal with no middle people, no brokers or anything like that, you're direct to sponsor with us, that I'm personally investing into, this is the one. This is the first and only deal in multifamily that we have brought forward this year. We've been super conservative. We've been super cautious with everything that we're doing, because the market right now, prices have been coming down a little bit on multifamily. They hit bottom and now they're starting to come up. This is what made us propel forward. So if you're interested in a killer off-market multifamily property, I would definitely look at this one. It's called Pine Tree Path. To learn about it, basically the investment works like this. You book a call with us to learn about it. You talk with one of my partners, you talk with Sue, or you just talk with Steve, or you can talk with myself. And the property looks like this. You put in $100,000. We're expecting somewhere between 16 and 20% internal rate of return. The more you invest, the more you can make. We have a couple of different tier structures we can talk to you about on the phone. And if you're a person that has $1 million or more, we have another enhanced economics plan. We can talk to you about that on a phone call. But if you're someone that's got $1 million or more, you fit right up our alley with some of our other investors. And we do really enhanced economics for folks that are in that boat. There's additional tax benefits, there's additional equity splits, and there's a really generous preferred return. The preferred return on $1 million or more is a 10% preferred return. That means you get paid before we get paid. Now, if you're curious, like, well, hey, Nate, how do you guys get paid in this deal? Like, what's in it for you? Let's just be open book about that. Okay, I think it's important. Number one, we get paid a fee when we buy it, kind of like a real estate agent would get paid. Real estate agents and brokers, they get paid a fee. We get paid a fee. That pretty much covers just our team cost of getting the asset inside of our control. Second, after we clear the preferred return, meaning every quarter when we do distributions, if you're at the 6% preferred return or the 10% preferred return, depending on your investment amount, after we clear that, then we as managers can get paid additionally at that point. But we have to clear the preferred return first. And then last, but probably the most important, this is like why I do these deals. It's why I think about these things for 5 years, literally of my life. I think about each of these assets until we sell them, is because we get paid a percentage of the profit. We get paid anywhere from 20% to 30% of the profit after we clear our investors' preferred returns. That's my big payday. It's why I'm doing these deals. It's why I get excited to come here and bring these opportunities forward. But that's open book, like why we do these deals and how we get paid. If you're interested, then all you got to do in the chat section is type the word call, C-A-L-L. That will get you set up with one of our team members. We'll reach out to you. We'll book a phone call with you. On that phone call, we'll literally just go through what your goals are. We'll show you the deal. We'll answer any questions that you have about the deal. And if you like it, cool. If not, then let's just be friends and look at future deals together. That's what I got for this round. Miss Sue, partner in crime on here. Do you have anything else that needs to be said that I missed today? We're without our fellow co-host, and I just want to make sure I'm not dropping the ball on anything.
If anybody has questions about investing with retirement funds, I think I'm the pro at that on this team.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. So Sue, you've been investing for a long time with us. You were a client before you ever became an investor. Then you became an investor, and now you help us talk to fellow investors. Maybe you can just tell, like, what did you do with your retirement account to make it accessible to invest in real estate?
Yeah, when I knew I was going to retire, I wanted access to that money, but I was only 52. So I did a lot of research and found that as long as you leave that money in a retirement vehicle, you can roll it over without paying any penalties or any fees. And then you could immediately use that money and invest. You could invest it in the market, in real estate, private money lending, bourbon, gold, silver. I don't think you could do baseball cards, but you have control of that money. And that was really important to me because I didn't have a lot when I retired. I had what I had in the 401k. So then there's other tax advantages, like if you're an entrepreneur and this is your retirement vehicle. You want me to stop?
No, you're good. I was adjusting my camera. Sorry.
Oh, you're saying you're an entrepreneur? But it's another tax advantage as well, because when I started selling properties for Nate, all my income is 1099 income. And I could contribute up to $73,500 of what I made from selling houses, roll it into that 401k and immediately use that money to invest. So I cut my taxes down $73,500 that year. And then I used the money for real estate. So there's some really good advantages to it.
You cut your taxes by 73,000. Did I hear that right?
If you just say I make 200,000 that year, 73,500 of that I could throw into the retirement account and not pay taxes on it now.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So Sue has invested into real estate for a long time now. She's become our local resident expert, and she's got a friend, I call him a friend at this point, but we've referred so much business to them, that does actual retirement account custodial work. So if you'd like to have your retirement account, IRA or 401k, set up in an account that you can invest directly into real estate deals, then chat with Sue. She can set you up with her contact, and she can answer questions that you have and all that kind of stuff too. Cool. Thank you, Sue. Appreciate it. And that will conclude Opportunity Zone this week. Remember, be a good steward of what you've got, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.